The Syrian peace process is the ensemble of initiatives and plans to resolve the Syrian Civil War, which has ravaged in Syria since 2011 and has spilled beyond its borders. The peace process has been moderated by the Arab League, the UN peace envoys on Syria, Russia and Western powers. The negotiating parties to end the conflict are typically representatives of the Syrian Ba'athist government and Syrian Opposition, while the Western-backed Kurdish forces have stayed out of the negotiations. Framework.Radical Salafist forces and Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant have not engaged in any contacts on peaceful resolution to the conflict. The attempts to find a solution to the conflict began in late 2011, when the Arab League launched two initiatives, but without much success. Russia in January 2012 and in November 2013 suggested talks in Moscow between the Syrian government and opposition. In March to May 2012, hopes were on a United Nations Arab League plan coordinated by Kofi Annan. In January and February 2014, the Geneva II Conference on Syria took place, organized by Lakhdar Brahimi, then UN envoy to Syria. On the 30th of October 2015, further talks started in Vienna involving officials from the US, the EU, Russia, China and various regional actors such as Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Turkey and, for the first time, Iran. Timeline: Arab League Peace Plans 2011-2012. In November 2011, January 2012, the Arab League twice tried to accomplish an end to Syrian government violence and convince both parties to start talks instead of fighting. After agreement of the Syrian government to the AL plan of the 19th of December, the AL sent a monitoring mission to Syria. Violence continued and Saudi Arabia on the 22nd of January withdrew its monitors from the mission and called on Russia, China and all other states to pressure Syria strongly to adhere to the AL peace plan. The Arab League on the 28th of January 2012 ended its monitoring mission. Russian Peace Initiatives for Syria 2012 Informal Talks Proposal. On the 30th of January 2012, the Russian Foreign Ministry suggested informal talks in Moscow between the Syrian government and opposition, and said the Syrian authorities had already agreed to the Russian offer. Abdulbasit Sadr, a member of the Syrian National Council's Executive Committee, told Reuters that the SNC had not received any formal invitation for such talks, but would decline if one arrived. Our position has not changed and it is that there is no dialogue with. February 2012, offering the fall of Assad. In February 2012, Marty Ahtisaari held talks with envoys of the permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. During those discussions, the Russian ambassador, Vitaly Cherkin, proposed a three-point plan, which would bring the Syrian government and opposition to the negotiation table and result in Assad stepping down as president. But, according to Ahtisaari, US, Britain and France rejected that proposal, being convinced that fall of Assad's government was inevitable. It was an opportunity lost in 2012, he said in an interview in September 2015. Other Western diplomats refute Ahtisaari's claims, with one stating, "I very much doubt the P3 refused to dismiss any such strategy offer at the time. The questions were more to do with sequencing, the beginning or end of process, and with Russia's ability to deliver, to get Assad to step down." On the 7th of November 2013, Russia again announced it was trying to broker talks in Moscow between the Syrian government and opposition, seeing that the US and Russian negotiators failed to agree on whether or not Assad should be forced out of office. Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Bogdanov said, the Moscow talks could focus on humanitarian problems as well on some political issues. Friends of Syria Group, February 2012. In February 2012, the then French President Sarkozy initiated an international contact group to find a solution for the Syrian conflict, after Russia and China had vetoed the 4th of February 2012 UN Security Council resolution. The group held 4 meetings, all in the year 2012. Kofi Annan Peace Plan, March 2012. The Kofi Annan Peace Plan, launched in March 2012, intended to commit both the Syrian government and opposition to a ceasefire and commit the Syrian government to initiate deliberations with the opposition on their aspirations and concerns. After Annan on the 12th of April had assumed that both parties had agreed to a ceasefire, the UN already on the 1st of May had to admit that both parties were violating it. An action group conference was held on Saturday, the 30th of June 2012, in Geneva, initiated by the then UN peace envoy to Syria Kofi Annan, and attended by U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov, a representative of China, British Foreign Secretary Haig, and Kofi Annan. Mr. Annan, issuing a communiqué, said that the conference agreed on the need for a transitional government body with full executive powers, which could include members of the present Syrian government and of the opposition. William Hague said that all 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, the US, Russia, China, France and the UK, supported Mr. Annan's efforts. Clinton, however, suggested that Syrian dictator Assad could, in such transitional government, not remain in power, which immediately was contradicted by Lavrov's 16th Summit of the Non-Aligned Movement. During the 16th Summit of the Non-Aligned Movement held from 26 to the 31st of August 2012 in Tehran, Iran, and attended by leaders of 120 countries, Iran intended to draw up a new peace resolution aiming to resolve the Syrian Civil War. But a consensus was not reached between the leaders. Eid al-Adha ceasefire attempt, September 2012. Lakhdar Brahimi, an Algerian diplomat, appointed on September 1, 2012, as the new UN Arab League Special Representative for Syria, appealed on both the Syrian government and the armed opposition to stop the killing during the Islamic festival of Eid al-Adha, which fell that year probably on the 26th of October 2012, and 3 or 4 days after it. Government and most of the opposition groups said yeses to his appeal, yet the lull in the fighting lasted very short, according to Brahimi, after which both parties accused the other of not having stopped its violence. Geneva II, 2014. The Geneva II Middle East Peace Conference was a United Nations-backed international conference, aimed at bringing Syrian government and opposition together to discuss a transitional government. Lakhdar Brahimi, UN Special Envoy to Syria, tried to pursue the conference in close cooperation with the US and Russia. It started on the 22nd of January 2014 and ended on the 31st of January. No agreement was reached. UN Peace Envoy for Syria, Staffan de Mistura, announced in early July plans to present new proposals at the end of July on the next steps needed in efforts to end the war. There have been no peace talks on Syria since the Geneva II meetings in early 2014 ended in failure. Zabadani ceasefire in September 2015. Hezbollah, an ally of the Syrian government, announced a 6-month truce between the rebel-held town of Zabadani near Damascus and 2 Shia towns in the northwest of Syria. The deal was reached after mediation from Iran. 4 Committees Initiative. The 4 Committees Initiative is a proposal put forward by United Nations Envoy Staffan de Mistura on the 29th of July 2015 as a way to start the peace process in the Syrian Civil War. Vienna process. On the 23rd of October 2015, the foreign ministers of the United States, Russia, Saudi Arabia and Turkey met and talked in Vienna, Austria, to find find a way to end the Syrian conflict. On the 30th of October 2015, the first round of the Syria peace talks were held in Vienna with foreign ministers of 20 countries participating: US, Russia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, China, United Kingdom, France, Italy, Germany and other countries. The ministers agreed on the need of the Syrian government and opposition to start political talks. The second round of the Vienna talks held in mid-November produced an agreement on the need to convene Syrian government and opposition representatives in formal negotiations under UN auspices with a target date of 1 January 2016, a day after a meeting of anti-government factions, including Ara Asham, held in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, on 10 December produced a statement of principles to guide peace talks with the Syrian government. Syrian President Bashar Assad said he would not negotiate with foreign terrorists. Russia also rejected the outcome of the meeting in Riyadh, which it said was unrepresentative and included terrorist groups. After John Kerry visited Moscow, where he met his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov as well as Vladimir Putin on 15 December, it was announced that on 18 December 2015 world powers would meet in New York to pass a UN resolution endorsing the principles of the Syria peace process. On 18 December 2015, the UN Security Council, having overcome the gridlock on Syria that had persisted since October 2011, unanimously passed Resolution 2254, endorsing the ISSG's transitional plan that set out a timetable for formal talks for a unity government within 6 months. The resolution put UN Special Envoy Staffan de Mistura in charge of organizing Syria talks. However, the major powers remained divided on who should represent the Syrian opposition. No mention was made of the future role of Syrian President Bashar Assad. Riyadh, December 2015. Conference of Syrian opposition groups. On 10 December 2015, a two-day meeting started in Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia, aiming at unifying Syria's opposition groups and forming an opposition delegation for the planned negotiations with the Syrian government. Syrian Kurdish factions were not represented at the meeting in Riyadh. Jabhat al-Nusra had not been invited because of its assumed terrorist links or al-Qaeda ties. An agreement emerged on 12 December. 34 oppositional groups allied themselves as the High Negotiation Committee. This included, among others, Ara al-Sham and Jaish al-Islam, but did not include Syrian Kurds and not include some moderate opposition members supported by Russia. France announced that the Syrian opposition had reached an agreement and had adopted a common program in Riyadh. Apart from France and Saudi Arabia, also Turkey and Qatar supported that High Negotiation Committee. Russia, however, said that those gathered in Riyadh did not represent all opposition groups and therefore were not in a position to speak on behalf of the entire Syrian opposition. Geneva 3, 2016. On Friday, 29 January 2016, a UN peace conference for Syria started in Geneva in Switzerland. At the first day, Syrian government and opposition refused to sit in the same room together. On 3 February 2016, UN envoy Staffan de Mistura suspended the peace talks. Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov commented that the opposition took a completely unconstructive position and tried to put forward preconditions. Rebel commanders were cited as saying they hoped the peace talks collapse would convince the foreign backers, states including Turkey and Saudi Arabia, that it was time to send them more powerful and advanced weapons, including anti-aircraft missiles. Cessation of hostilities. On 12 February 2016, the ISSG powers established an ISSG ceasefire task force under the auspices of the UN. co-chaired by Russia and the United States, and issued a joint communiqué saying inter alia, an ISSG task force will within 1 week elaborate modalities for a nationwide cessation of hostilities. On the 22nd of February 2016, in Munich, foreign ministers of Russia and the U.S., as co-chairs of the ISSG, announced that they had concluded a deal to seek a nationwide cessation of hostilities in Syria to begin a week later. The deal set out the terms for a cessation of hostilities in Syria. Russia and the U.S. proposed that the cessation of hostilities commence at 0000 on February 27, 2016. The ISSG countries are supposed to monitor compliance with the terms of the truce, which was pronounced as of 29 February 2016, when the ISSG task force met in Geneva, to be largely holding